Well, we will see how this goes. The coffee was pretty strong this morning. I'm like, one I wonder is, no, I don't like that. Let's try this again. What ideas were you exposed to as a young adult? Now, our culture, that is kind of Western culture, European culture, which would include other places in the world other than Europe, has tended to think that one of the biggest factors in your development and who you are is culture and the sorts of habits that your culture gives to you, or perhaps your parents, your family. That's kind of more the psychological approach, tell me about your father and then I can tell you about you. But there's other things. We think of media, generations. So, what sort of music did you grow up with, to what sorts of world events were happening when you were a young person. When I was a young adult, September 11th was kind of the thing. But Dallas Willard is going to point to ideas, which is kind of obvious here from the title, but really the ideas that happen or are given to us at the university. Now, even if you didn't go to university, you still probably, if you grew up in Europe, were influenced by the people that did go to university or the people that ran university. And what he's going to say is that those sorts of ideas that you were exposed to then are perhaps the most important thing about you. Yes, welcome to the Sanctus Forum. I am Michael Stewart Robb, better known as Mike. I'm going to still keep saying that. And this is Conspiracy Commentaries. We're talking about Dallas Willard's The Divine Conspiracy. We're in Chapter 1, first section of Chapter 1, an entire section called Life in the Dark. And today we're talking about a section here, let me open it up, called The Incredible Power of Mere Ideas. Now, if you've watched the previous sections, this is going to come to you as sort of no surprise. He's been talking about how the things that are talked about at Harvard specifically, but other sorts of universities, do really make a difference, at least there for Harvard students. And now he's going to start moving out into sort of the world in general and talk about how just the idea system of ideas, that's one of his phrases, actually comes to influence next to everything. And what he's going to do is talk about this guy. I don't actually know how to say his name. Keenus, sorry if that's your name too, but I don't know how to say him. I've never read him, who says that the world is ruled by ideas, basically. So no matter what area of life you're concerned about, whether it's about the arts or whether it's about economics or whether it's in religion and philosophy, it's maybe a little more obvious, but if you're concerned about crafts, if you're concerned about raising families, ideas are very, very powerful. So we need to be clear on what sorts of ideas our culture sort of is in the grip of. And what he's going to say is that this idea of there not being any moral knowledge is one of these ideas that is so deep in our society that you don't even have to defend it anymore. You just sort of accept it. It's just a part of every aspect of life. Politics, it's a part of the educational system. It's a part of our work and businesses. And it's a part of how we raise families, that nobody can really know what's right and what's wrong, and nobody could therefore become a good or bad person. And what he's there's this kind of section here, I want to point it out to you. It's for me on page 6. And let's see here, the paragraph is 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph. The power of mere ideas is a matter about which intellectuals commonly deceive themselves, and intentionally or not also mislead the public. This is kind of an interesting section here. He says that he's saying basically that the people who deal with ideas the most don't even recognize how serious these things are with which they deal. They kind of think, well, we're just shooting about, passing back and forth, discussing things. But, I'm just this sort of lonely academic who meets students, and it doesn't really matter what we talk about or not, as long as it's intellectually stimulating and all of that. But what he's saying is that no, actually, students are listening. People are listening. They are picking up what you're saying, and they're picking up what you aren't saying as well. And then years later, decades later, they are using those ideas to live, to be responsible for what they're responsible for, whether it's a particular job or money or their family or whatever. They're using the ideas that they picked up in your classroom to manage the world. And so if you're concerned about how the world is being managed, then you might need to think about what sorts of ideas were there when those young people were in their sort of formative stages. And that's why I think that we should think about what those things were that were there for us. And I would even suggest as a practical tip to write that in the margin of this book. Write down very quickly, don't give it much time, who were the people, what were the ideas, the isms that were there for you when you were, ages 17 to 25. And you might have to be a little bit, they may not have obviously been somebody who was trying to teach you something, but somebody who perhaps nevertheless did teach you something about how the world is. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe and go sign up for that almost monthly newsletter I keep on talking about. And thanks for watching. Oh, if you've got a question, info@sanctus.institute is a great place to do that. Otherwise, you can put it in the comments. Maybe somebody will respond. Maybe I will respond. So we'll see. All right. Bye.